guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. I hope you're doing all well. I've decided to, moving forward, to divide the wrap-up and TBR for books from the TBR and wrap-up for manga and graphic novels. Otherwise, the videos were becoming too long and difficult to edit, and also thought that a lot of people are not interested in one or the other, and people that are can just watch two videos instead of one. So that's the first thing I decided to do. And the other thing you might have noticed this month is that I don't have a TBR for June, and there is a very good reason for that. So the statistics are also gonna be divided. So the statistics that you saw are only including the books. And I wanted to also say that from the statistics you might have seen that overall I had a satisfactory reading month this past May. However, what happened is that because I felt overwhelmed by the quantity of books that I had on my TBR, I ended up listening to many of the books that you're about to hear me talking about via audio. And although I do enjoy audio, I kind of use audiobooks as an addendum. Like, I get to listen to books on script that I don't own, and then I can decide if I want a physical copy or not. And that makes sense for me, but it doesn't personally does make much sense for me to listen to books I physically own. First of all, I enjoy reading physically most than any other format of reading. I don't particularly like Kindle reading, and audiobook I'm getting used to. So I kind of feel like, oh, I've purchased the book, I love reading physical books, and now I am ended up listening to them on audio instead, just because I need to keep up with my TBRs, and it felt a bit overwhelming, and I don't like physically having to resort to listening to the books I own on audio, or at least not to the majority of them. If it's one-off, that's completely fine, but I do like to go on script and, you know, listen to audios or books that I don't own, and it does make more sense for me. So all of this to say that I felt very overwhelmed because I had 20 books on my TBR, maybe 25. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a catch-up month in June. I'm gonna catch up with the books I didn't get around in April and May. And when I put all together my TBR, it still came out as 12 books just catching up, which is more than enough, you know, for me to read in a month. So that's what's gonna happen. Because of that, I didn't put up a TBR because they're books that you've seen in May and April. But I'm gonna just touch upon very quickly, not synopsis, just listing them. So first of all, I am halfway through City of Dusk, so I'm gonna continue on. I am then gonna read Grog, or attempt to. I'm gonna then read Empire of the Vampire. Sorry, the dust jacket is downstairs. Skinful of Shadows, Death Watch, Miserere, The Rook, And I Darken, The Wall of Storms, Beasts of Prey. And the only two that you've not seen in other TBRs, just because they are the Fairy Loot books that came in May, so I'm gonna add them to my TBR. So the books you just saw would be 10, including massive books, so hopefully I can get around to reading them. But also I will read from Fairy Loot that just arrived, The Stardust Teeth, which is the YA fantasy, and this is the Book of Night by Holly Black. Sorry again, dust jackets. They are downstairs. Both of them deal with basically girl that steals stuff, magic stuff, and they get in trouble. So yeah, I've done an unboxing of this, so if you're interested in more of a synopsis, it's in there. But yeah, so these ones are gonna be the new ones that I add to my TBR. So I'm gonna go now into the wrap-up section, from least enjoyed to the most enjoyable one for me personally, and I'm gonna do again a separate video for manga and graphic novels, but also the TBR for graphic novels and manga are gonna be very exciting, at least for me it is. So I try to compensate with an exciting TBR for graphic novels and manga, as I'm not getting around new books. For the book section, funny thing, I do own this book, but I don't know where it is. I think I probably put in a pile to be sold, probably put in the car to bring it to a charity shop, whatever. So at number 11 I got The Name of a Star. This is a YA series inspired by Jack the Ripper. You got this girl that goes to boarding school in England, and all of a sudden Ripper-like murder starts to happen, and she's the only one who can see the guy committing these things. And it's a paranormal urban fantasy YA novel. I did like the humor in this and the writing. I just really didn't care about the plot ultimately. I think it started kind of strong. I was interested, and then it just didn't click with me. And I think the mystery, who done it, who's the culprit, why you the only one who can see him, and blah blah blah, that was interesting for 5 minutes. And then when I found out what it was, I just didn't buy it, and I'm not gonna continue with the series. However, I'm gonna check out more by the author in the future, because I did really like her style of writing. At number 10 we have The Furies. This is an arc that I'm holding in my hands. However, because I listened to this on audio, I got basically to listen to the final release copy. If it makes sense, this is the story of this girl. She joins with high school and she starts this friendship with this bunch of unlikable girls, and this is a very cliche book in that sense, story that I've read before, of this unlikable girl herself forming this friendship with very unlikable girls in order to be accepted. Just this time it ends up in murder. You know immediately from the first chapter that a girl is found dead, and basically then you go back and see the events that led to that death. And I didn't mind the audiobook necessarily, but ultimately it didn't feel nothing special. It just was in the realm of meh, okay. What I did like was the ending, and I did like some discussions that were in here, and someone might think like feminist discussions, so that I really liked. I don't mind unlikable characters. I just didn't think that in their unlikableness they were unique, so they felt like characters I had read before. So I ended up giving these 3 stars. Ouch. Ultimately, would I recommend these? In a sense, I think if you're up to this kind of high school unlikable girls and a bit of murder behind it, you might want to give it a try. I didn't mind the writing or anything. It was just something that it didn't feel particularly new, but I did like the ending. At number 9 we have Finn. Finn is a short novel that I found on Scribd actually, and it's just an hour-long audio, and this is the newest release, or among the newest, from Stephen King. So I just recently released, like literally today, before I listened to this. And this is the story of this boy who's very unlucky, and in his misfortune he gets kidnapped by mob guys, thinking he's someone else. And this started really strong. I do like King's writing ultimately. Like, I am overall a fan of King, although he does have his misses, but his writing I always enjoy. I thought it was always funny, sassy, and I think up to the end I was gripped by the story. I thought it was that touch of absurd, weird, that's typical of King if you want. Just the ending, I had to go back and listen to the ending 4 bloody times because I just couldn't get it. Like, I was like, oh, that's it? And then I remember that King has this thing where the endings sometimes, because I mean King wrote some of my favorite books ever in terms of horror, but a lot of his endings, man, and this was no different. And I gave it 3 stars, maybe 3.5. I did really enjoy up to the end and was like, oh, that's it? I don't know, it was a bit confusing, but also I think I got it at the end after the 4th listen, and I was like, so yeah. At number 8 we have The Butterfly Garden. This is a crime thriller novel, and the peculiarity of this is that you follow these detectives that have solved a kidnap case for like decades now, that this, man has kidnapped these girls, kept them in this garden, he calls it the garden, and then now you are in the aftermath where this guy has been caught, and there are some survivors, and especially you follow one of these survivors recounting her story to these 2 detectives to basically put together the pieces. And it's a very weird take on the genre. So usually, when you get into a detective story, you follow the detective finding the bad guy and what happened, and whether in here you got the victim telling you what happened. So I really liked that aspect of it because I thought it was a new take and I enjoyed seeing things from her perspective. I think it's a bit misleading from the back because I think like, oh, she's an unreliable main character, whatever. I don't agree with that. It's simply a different take of your usual thriller. Said that though, this was too far-fetched. Like, I do like my thriller, if you're not like fantasy or sci-fi, whether these, but they're just, you know, taking place in our world that we know of. No freaking way this would have happened. Not this way. So there were a lot of moments of what the fuck, but not necessarily in a good sense. In a sense that like, really, that's a bit absurd. There were a couple of twists that I did enjoy. Definitely some twists didn't see coming, but when I saw them happening, I was like, oh, like, it doesn't feel very realistic. Like, I couldn't suspend belief and thinking that this really happened. Again, we do follow an unlikable character, not an unreliable character, and that was just it. But I think it was curious. Like, I read it, I didn't struggle through it, I didn't think about DNFing it, but I don't think I'm gonna continue with the series. And I overall, I don't know if I will check out, maybe find them in charity shops, but I don't think I'm gonna keep these, just because ultimately it kind of lacked the element of suspense for me. So I thought, oh, I'm gonna go into a classic detective story where I'm gonna find out who the culprit is and go along the journey. But for me, knowing already who it was and not having a lot of twists and turns about his identity, so it didn't have the element of suspense I usually go for in my thrillers. Said that I do recognize that, you know, she chose to take things in a different way, and many might love that. So I think this is a subjective preference where I didn't like it, and it's a bit absurd. That must be said. Number 7, we have Emily Ratajkowski, My Body. This is a collection of essay non-fiction written by this famous model, and she's kind of recounting her childhood, how she got into modeling, what happened to her. She is the protagonist basically of the famous Blurred Lines video. So she's someone who I never followed. I didn't know much about from, you know, she was in the Blurred Line video. But I heard that this was a feminist text, like it was full of essays, full of feminist messages. And I really liked some of the quotes that I thought were in these, because people had mentioned some quotes and I really loved them. So we chose this as our book club book and read it together, and then had a discussion last week about these. I'm a bit conflicted about these. I enjoyed reading these in a sense that I discovered a lot about this woman, and I discovered a lot about, you know, what had happened in the background, and I thought it was well written. Said that though, I had to say that it was also a bit disappointing. I was expecting something more. I was expecting more of a feminist manifesto than this. Actually, I thought it was, in a sense. I was expecting that, for example, some of the quotes that people told me, oh, what quote from that book I really loved, were not her quotes. She copied in the book quotes of somebody else, which is nothing wrong, but they were sold to me as, oh, this is some of the quotes in this book, so good, and instead it's just literally one, and it wasn't hers, that I really loved. But said that, also I thought that this is more biography rather than feminist essays in a sense, and a lot of the times she came across as she was angry with men because of the way they treated her, and she was having a go at them. I'll be really completely honest. That's the feeling I had. I think some of the messages she wants to convey, I got it and I appreciated them, but overall it felt like a manifesto, like a big, to a lot of the men that she had encountered in her life and did something that, you know, hurts her or whatever. I thought though it was a good eye-opening, at least for me it was more a confirmation of how the industry worked. I thought it sucked and it was very corrupted, and she just confirms it. And another thing I didn't particularly like, I thought because of her, she left school and went modeling or whatever, I think she's trying very hard to say, oh, but you know, I'm not just a pretty girl, I'm very intelligent. And I think, I don't know, in a sense, smart people don't have to come to you and tell you, oh, look how smart I am, I can do this and that. They just are. And she sometimes seemed like to make an effort to come up as, oh, look, I've also a brain. And I felt that was a bit cringy sometimes, how you can see that she wants to come across as this educated, intelligent woman at all costs. Yeah, anyway, we had a huge discussion about this, like 2 hours long, so that was good because I think it prompted a lot of discussion points. But I might get rid of these. I don't think I need these, and I don't think it was the revolutionary essays that I was looking forward to. Might I check out more by her in the future? Possibly. I did like her writing. I think she's on this journey of self-discovery, which I might, in the future read more about her. But yeah, I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. At number 6, we have a stunning looking book. This is Bloodshone, and it was the Fairy Loot book for April. So of course I read it. I've done an unboxing. I'll link it down below. And this is the story of basically this girl. She has inherited the powers of a god, especially in her case, god of fire and destruction. But because of the way her people have been suppressed and basically exterminated by this ruling kingdom, this ruling people of illusion, I think they're called, something of the sort. So she's in hiding. She can't, of course, let her magic seeps out. And one day she's unfortunately drafted to be part of a military for the ruling people, and so she has to go there, and she will take this occasion to find out what happened to her mother who disappeared. So she enlists and becomes a warrior for the enemy, in a sense, enemy of her people. So now this is inspired by real events, and I heard people saying that this was not really YA and they were expecting more of a YA story. I don't agree. I think this definitely gives out YA vibes. I think people think that, younger readers shouldn't read about this violence, and because it's very violent, but I do disagree with that. I thought that, it does read like a YA. The only thing that's more enhanced than typical YA is the amount of graphic violence that's in here. But again, these things happen to children, so in a sense, I think that, young teens should know that these things, not like these exactly, but similar things did happen to other children, other young people. And so I do think that this is a YA, and it should be targeted as a YA. Just be aware that it's full of violence. I listened to this on audiobook, and the only reason why it's a 6th place is that because this felt very much like a dystopian in a sense. So it's dystopian is just really not my cup of tea. I didn't mind the writing. I thought the story was well put together. I did like the ending. I thought there were enough twists and turns to keep me captivated. I did like our main protagonist. She is someone who's flawed, someone who has a lot of times make choices and think about, survival of herself before the survival of others. And I thought that was very human at the core. So I really liked her as a protagonist. I want to continue on just because, unfortunately, these kind of plots for me, maybe I've read enough in the past, I don't know, I just don't care. But this is a very me thing. This is gonna go on my bookshelf, because can we, so if it's just a preference of myself, I won't continue on just because the plot wasn't my cup of tea. But I think many people will enjoy these. So if you're interested in the genre and you want a YA with a bit more violence, with a good plot twist and a good flawed main character, definitely check this out. And I give this 3.75 stars. So number 5, I've got Red Hill by Jamie McGuire. I've read the Beautiful Disaster series by her back in the days when I was still reading new adult romances, and I loved that book. Yes, I know it's problematic, whether I loved that book, full stop. And I have to say that I was a bit hesitant because this is another book that doesn't really fit into the genre that I like. I am not into zombie apocalyptic stuff like that, and this is all about that. So basically this is about this virus that hits and people are then reborn into zombies and they want to eat other people, and you follow this bunch of characters that end up in this remote cabin and trying to survive the apocalypse, basically. Now I listened to this on audio and I went into this thinking like probably it's a DNF or whatever, but I forgot and I had not read a book by her in many years. I do really like her writing. I even almost teared up in the end. I think she does a relationship very well. There is also one protagonist in this, one main character, that she was so kick-ass. I really like Scarlett, one of the main protagonists. One of the other main protagonists, because you followed 3 different perspectives. Her end I didn't get, and I didn't get the point of following stuff from her side, but at the same time I thought if you look at this in another perspective, it was kind of realistic. Like, you follow this character and then that was the end. It was like, oh, okay. So although I didn't love it, I could respect that choice, if it makes sense. I might even try for the sequel. I think this woman, she can write, and if she can keep me glued to the audio as she did with these, a genre that I really don't like usually, that takes skills. I gave this full 4 stars. If you are into apocalypse zombies with a tiny bit of romance but doesn't take over the plot though, because this remains mostly a survival story, you might want to check this out. I think it's a sequel. I might check it out, which was way more than I expected. And number 4, we have The Gods of Gotham. This is the story of his ex-bartender who loses in a fire his job and his workplace, so he decides, through the help of his older brother, to enlist and become one of the first police officers in New York. And this takes place when the police force in New York was first set up. So this was extraordinarily written. Like, this woman writing style seeped under my skin. The amount also of the research that has gotten into this, like, it felt very historical accurate. I learned so much from the slang, from the what happened, how the police force came to be, how it was structured. I thought she did such an amazing job with this book. The writing was so poignant, so touching. I think I read through these very quickly just because I didn't want to stop reading something by her, and I purchased the sequel, not because I care very much about the plot, but because I care about reading more by her, and I thought that we need more writers like her. Also, this is a book that taught me a lot. Taught me so many things that I didn't know. And when a book can do that, I'm always in awe. But the reason why this is 4th place, and I'll be really honest, this could go 3rd place, so this and the next one are literally interchangeable, is because of the plot. The plot was okay. It was a murder mystery that I did enjoy overall solving, but it wasn't all blow my mind. I think a lot of things I called, a lot of things I saw coming. But again, I don't think the murder mystery was the main core of this. I thought that the historical setting and this character introspection that we get into these two brothers was, and one of the love interests, was the point of the book. And if that was the point of the book, she did it perfectly. We'll continue on with the series. I think this is a trilogy, and I gave this 4.25 stars. Oh man, if you want to experience good writing and you like historical fiction, even if you don't like particularly mystery, I thought, oh, that was so good. By the way, New York in that time felt like it was very shitty. And number 3, we had the one that could go number 4. I literally debated for 15 minutes which one goes first. So in the end, I put that at number 4 just because this is the end of a series, that beloved series of mine, but they are interchangeable. Just keep that in mind. And we have The Labyrinth of the Spirits, the last book in a quartet. Zafon wrote The Shadow of the Wind, first book in this quartet, which to these days is my favorite book ever, especially when it comes down to writing. So I finished these, and so let me say something. So this is our 800 pages book. It doesn't look like it, but it is. See this? It's 800 pages. And I can't say anything about the plot of these, and I think it doesn't make sense even for me to explain what The Shadow of the Wind is. This quartet is made of self-contained stories, they say. I don't agree. I thought that these read in chronological order would make a bit more sense. So basically you follow different stories, but they're all interconnected, and in all of these they all came together. And it's been too long since I had read the other two, and I think that was one of the points that made me enjoy this book a bit less than I could have if I knew and remember exactly all the points. So if you want to read this quartet, read it in a shorter time rather than me reading it in 4 years time, one book a year or one book every 2 years, because that was my mistake. But this book was too long, bloody too long, and I think though the plot that contained, it was way too long. Like, it could have been half of this and we would have tackled all the plot points very well. He has amazing writing. We lost one of the best writers, in my opinion, when it comes down to historical literary fiction of his sort when he passed away, and I was emotionally attached to these just because I knew I wouldn't get many books by him past these. I think I've got 3 more to read by him, and so that was a thing. I also came to the realization that David, which is the protagonist of The Shadow of the Wind, is a sort of protagonist. is an in-speed character. He is a very meh. He doesn't have much depth, in my opinion, David, and I never liked him much. Fermin, I want him as my grandpa. Like, Fermin is the true protagonist of this quartet of novels. And I don't remember, I think he's not in one of the novels, but he's in the other three, and I really think that he's the top character. He's my favorite character in this series, and he should be, like, he's the true protagonist, because David is just inconsequential. And still felt like this. Some of parts I was very wanted to know, and then some other parts, like 200 pages of just flowery, beautiful writing, yes, but the plot could have done with a shorter book. So that I gave it 4 stars, and I think I put this on 3rd place because of the attachment that came with me following these and me loving his writing style. Do I recommend the quartet? I'll be very, very honest. I think you can read The Shadowy Wind, which is mind-blowing, and be done with it. You don't need to read the rest. If you're a true fan of him, you want to continue on, but the other installments personally didn't live up to what The Shadowy Wind was. I just loved his writing so much, but I want to read everything he's put out. He didn't, I think he wrote like 8, 9 books maximum, and so I want to taste his writing for how much I can, but I wouldn't think that they are necessarily the other installments in the series. And number 2, we have another one that the only reason why it's number 2 is because of something I'm gonna touch in a second, but in a sense it could have gone to number 1 if it wasn't for that one thing. But number 2 is Into the Drowning Deep. This is a horror novel, and it's the story of this crew of people that has been put together to investigate a section of the ocean, one of the deepest, most remote and unknown parts of the ocean, where a crew sent by the same industry, same media industry, I think it was like they produce like reality TV show, or like they do like some shows in TV basically. And years before, they have sent this crew to investigate rumors of sirens, rumors of mermaids, and that crew disappeared. So years after, they put together this crew of scientists and people that can deal with a lot of stuff, including like mythological murder creatures, and they say, go there, investigate if these mermaids are real, let's see what happens to, you know, the crew 7 years prior was true, let's see if there is any credibility or any truth behind this myth. I'm gonna leave it at that, but it's clear very soon what happened to this crew. So at the beginning of the book you find out what happens, and that makes it more interesting in a sense. This was fascinating, guys. I really enjoyed it. I thought this type of almost environmental horror I never experienced before, and now that I have, I'm a fan. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the finding out about what happened, who are these creatures, are they there, how they work, and all of that was key to my enjoyment to this. And I think Mira Grant is and I think she's Shannon Maguire, I think. She has beautiful writing, but also she keeps things very, very interesting. Said that, I do believe that the second part of this book wasn't as strong. I thought the ending was a bit disappointing. Like, we get to this climax and then it really doesn't hit, if it makes sense. So that was a thing, and that's the reason why it's a second place, because I thought such a strong, fascinating first part, action-packed, and we get to discover stuff, and then the end was mayhem. Fair enough, I enjoyed that part. I really enjoyed that part. But when we get to it's building up, oh, nothing. So that was a bit disappointing. I think this is also a book that warrants a sequel. Like, I want a sequel of this. This deserves a sequel. I need a sequel right now, please. So I really hope she does, because I think I read an article saying that there was no plan to do one, but this felt incomplete. The characters, we follow a bunch of characters, some unlikable, some were better, but overall I was there for the mystery and it delivered. In a sense. So yeah, would recommend. I would definitely recommend. And the number 1, we actually have one of the lightest reads. I've listened to this on audiobook, although I got upset because I didn't want to listen to this on audiobook, but I wanted to finish it this month. It's Dark Fever. This is an urban fantasy. You got this main protagonist, Mac. She has to travel to Ireland and find out what happened to her sister. Twin sister was brutally murdered. Oh no, sister? Older sister or twin sister? I don't remember. She goes to Ireland. That's the place where her sister had gone to study and then was eventually murdered. And when she goes there, it turns out that there might be supernatural elements involved in the murder. She's someone special. There might be fae involved, and so forth. I really enjoyed it. This was a simple read in a sense, like it's just a guilty pleasure read. We have this main protagonist. She's an apologetically very stereotypical blonde bartender girl at the beginning, but she's so bloody funny. Like I honestly, I was listening to the audiobook on the bus on, you know, my commute during work, and I was literally sometimes laughing out loud, which was embarrassing, by the way. And so I really enjoyed the characters, and the relationship was hilarious. I don't think it's like, it's not a hate to love relationship. At the moment it's just hate, but I really enjoyed seeing how they interact with each other. This guy is very grumpy and problematic in a sense. I also like the mystery. I think this is definitely the start of a series. We don't get many answers from these, and I'd also like the take we had on fairies in these, because the majority of them are actually horrific. They are mean and disgusting and murderers. So I really like that. I will continue with the series. Actually, I already purchased the second book. You might have seen this in my haul, and I ended up giving these 4.5 stars. 4.75 stars. Honestly, I don't have much complaints. Like, this was an urban fantasy that delivered what it should have. Loved Mac. Like, I thought she was absolutely hilarious. And that's it, guys. That's all I've read in the month. Again, apologies if I don't have a TBR. I'm upset in a sense, because I do love like picking up a random shelf and reading the books, but we will be back in July. Hopefully I will catch up with a lot of the books that I couldn't in May and April. But thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what was your favorite read of the month, so I can add that to my TBR list. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!